we have lost count of all the shit that this man has done. And I don't trust anything coming out of his administration. I don't trust anything that they tell me. There's nothing they could ever tell me that I would believe was the truth. I would have to have it independently verified by someone else. Because at this point, they are just running the table, doing whatever the hell it is they want. And anybody who voted for him the second time, including my own family members, my sister, my only sister, you're shit. You're shit to me. That's what you are. You chose this hell that we are in right now because you couldn't put your racism aside. Your money was more important. Your stupidity was more. Everything was more important to you than keeping this country united and keeping us together. That's you chose your petty little bullshit, and I will never. I'll stand on that forever. And I'm not forgiving nobody. I don't give a fuck how they feel about what I say. And if they have to have everything dumbed down, then hell, they are dumb and we are elite. That's just what.
Yeah, I just want to add on top of let me get it real quick.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah, I'm gonna be quick. But I did want to add to what Whip was saying too about like the sort of going back to the past, right? So I just feel like they just found weak points in all this stuff. Like she said, like the sort of the black lash or the white lash, what do you want to call it? The 8 years of black person, even like with the incel crew, like as far as we was thinking about like more traditional wives and like want to be like where they want to like sort of, and this is for all people as well, like just men in general, like they picked out little things, the whole trans thing, like they just picked weaknesses in our society and they went after those and they exploited them to their benefit. But that's all I was gonna say.
Yeah, no, it's okay, brother, and they do that very well. That was a great segue. You know, listen, these guys sat down, but this is why we're in a war, right? Because these guys sat down in the room and they methodically looked through the Constitution, they methodically looked into the gray areas, they methodically did this. This was an examination, an analysis, and they rendered a plan, right? And that plan is being executed in real time, all right? And I'll say this over and over again. In order for this plan to be executed, they did the work. Mr. Trump never stopped campaigning. When he left office, he never stopped campaigning. He's been on the road. So in any type of debate, an individual against him won't have the skill set, you know, they won't have the, it's like somebody's in the gym working out and you go compete with that person and you go to the gym once a week and they're in there freaking 7 days a week. There's no way that you've built enough stamina, muscle strength, etc., to compete with that person. And this is what he did. This is what the MAGA movement did. They did not stop. You know, now the Democrats made a grave mistake. For some reason, all along they were on some. They didn't want to get tough. It took everything. It took all of this to happen for them to just demonstrate some type of a freaking backbone, some type of heart. They just felt comfortable in their cowardness. They felt comfortable in being civil, etc., not realizing the threat that was before us. And so, if you debate Trump on any stage at that point, you're gonna lose because he's quicker with the comebacks. His wit is sharper. Everything. Unfortunately, this country will not elect a female as president, much less a black female. I have a post I'm going to put in the chat shortly that I did back in 2016, and it's still on my page. I'm going to put it in the chat. And you know, it's just like it's very frustrating because I've been trying, jumping up and down, and say to people like, this is a dangerous situation that we have upon us. You know, I don't have a large enough platform to really have any mass effect, but I think I could spark the person that does have a good platform, the people who are skilled at this much better than I and us in this room to articulate what this danger was. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are in a war. This is, and now the military apparatus that he uses is the what is it? ICE. That's his military. They're now the largest freaking law enforcement agency in the United States. Now, if you want a job that's where you go. People are going there to get work now because they're hiring in all types of positions besides the people on the ground. That's where the work, they've turned this into an entire industry. And the economy was okay. The economy wasn't bad. But like someone alluded to earlier, the notion that it was bad, that's what they went through. Not the reality of it, because it really wasn't like critical, right? It could be better, et cetera, but it was definitely no crisis that we had to worry about. And I would advise the Democrats to remove themselves from allowing themselves to be the face of certain type of groups and all of that. Like, y'all gotta scratch all of that shit and get to work. And really dig in and get to work.
So one last thing I'll say about this subject is, I agree with you, and you too, Marshall, because you said it several times in the room. Stop it first, you said it in the room several times, that it's because they were being called dumb and stupid. Well, I don't know anybody other than on Clubhouse that were out in the world calling people dumb and stupid. People voted the way they voted because that's what they wanted to do. And I don't have to say any more than that on that part. They did it because that's what they wanted to do. They thought, if they felt like, even if the GOP was driving the narrative, that's what that is. But here we are now today, the economy is messed up, and they still would vote for him again. So they didn't care about the economy. It's the other stuff, that we don't want to talk about. The race thing and all of that. Everything they said Obama or Biden didn't do is happening now. Or everything that was wrong with Biden and how he governed the economy was terrible. Well, the economy is worse. But those people who voted because the economy was terrible,
you have to pay these people. You're projecting your own pain for yourself.
So Mel just sent me something and I looked it up.
Oh, you talking about the Melania Trump thing? Please don't put me down. Because I just saw that bullshit.
So the House Republicans are looking to rename the Kennedy Center Opera House after Melania Trump.
No, she's actually, I was actually going to freak it up. Man, I'm just like, people don't see that this is a game to this man and his people. Project 2025 is alive and well. I actually am just laughing now because you got a man who is literally tanking our country as we speak, but who's worried about the Washington Commanders changing their name and the Cleveland Guardians back to the Indians and the Redskins, respectfully. You got them trying to rename.
What is McHale debating Barth?
You got them doing. You got them even releasing the Martin Luther King files instead of these Epstein files. They don't want to talk about how these tariffs have pretty much caused so many issues. They're simultaneously still firing people from the federal government.
When is McCann, Senator McCann, debating
Barth? Education. Like, we see so much going on, and I gave this little experience I was telling earlier. Like, for people who in need of Social Security and different things like that, whether it's for disability, illness, stuff like that, it's over a year, almost 2-year wait to even get just in the hands of somebody to even get pending. I've been waiting for my son who has autism for over a year now, and it's still in pending status. Like, because of everything that's pretty much has been messed up. You have so many issues that's going on. You got people that's getting ready to be kicked off their insurance. You had so many people complain about the Affordable Health Care Act that didn't know it was Obamacare, but said they hated Obamacare until somebody told them it was the same. You got them silencing the media. You got them suing the media. You got them doing everything they possibly can. And people are okay with it. It's people who have lost their jobs and say they do not regret their vote. You have Americans being sent to foreign countries. They are not from Ecuador, everything else like that. It's so crazy that you even got Hunter Biden making sense on the goddamn TV. Where have we gone as a fucking country? But I heard somebody on TikTok, and I get ready to land, who basically said the reason why we are here is because the United States did not make sure they course corrected during the Civil War by giving the Confederates a bypass, by paying them back for the slaves and doing all this kumbaya crap. We allowed this crap to fester. We didn't do what Germany did. We allowed this shit to fester, and now you see it live in living color to where people are openly admitting being fascists in this nation. If y'all ain't seen the Jubilee thing, it's nothing.
Can I ask a question about the Kennedy Center thing real quick? They're talking about naming after Melania. Am I mistaken? Is Malaysia now a performing arts?
It is, especially if you're on X.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just wondering.
Is that the same place they got booed the last time they were?
Yes.
That will be the same case.
So he's just being petty. He's like, all right, let me piss off all the performers, all the people for booing. I'm about to name this after the worst person that they can name that they're gonna want to put their name on a program for.
And let's not forget, she's currently the chairman over the Kennedy Center as we speak.
I don't think it's about let me say this. Good evening, everybody. A lot of people made some really good points. I just want to maybe reframe maybe some of the things that people have said, because I actually don't think that it's sort of like as I don't think the conversation is as young as maybe people think it is. And when I say young, what I mean is I don't think that it's as playful and like gamesmanship. This is about fundamentally changing the sort of core of the identity of the country. And there are a number of good articles I'm happy to share with you all, but the president wants to be a king. In fact, I believe he thinks he's a god. Maybe not God in sort of the big G sense, but he is God-like. The people that he has around him continues to placate to that moniker. Renaming the Kennedy Center is not about throwing shade after being booed. It's about fundamentally making idols out of people, making an idol out of your wife, making an idol out of himself, so that he could be worshipped like a god. And some of the things that he's doing is concentrating the power of the presidency so that there is really an authoritarian, a theocracy, if you will, where people in the United States House or Senate really don't matter. The courts don't matter because power is centralized. And if anybody told you that, it was the Democratic Party all throughout the cycle. What I heard on this app, and I'll finish with this, what I heard on this app from so many people was this one thing, and that was that the Democrats were hyping up the facts to fearmonger people into voting. The reality is Project 2020-25 was not an illusion to the president. He knew everything in it. He played in your face, and people believed it. And the broader reality, I think, is that populism across the world has taken hold on both sides. So you see it on the far right and you see it on the far left. People feel left behind. And as a result of that, they are gravitating to the person who not only soothes their fears, but gives them hope that they will be seen as important, as relevant, that the government is working for them or whoever is working for them. And that's what we're seeing around the world in elections after elections around the world. So it's not just in the United States, but I do believe that this president's focus is to concentrate power in a way that we've never seen before. I'm done speaking.
mama. How y'all feeling? Y'all good? Y'all done with the conversation?
I'm on the road.
Oh, okay.
But no, I don't think that's just his focus. I think he's actually accomplished that. I think he's consolidating power into the executive branch, and he's doing it effectively, which is scary as fuck. It doesn't seem like the checks and balances that's supposed to be there don't seem like they're being very impactful in this moment. Maybe they're going to be slow like the wheels of justice, but right now, he having it his way. He Burger King right now. I do think the Epstein files are going to get him out. I think that it's eroding. It's eroding his base, and I think like some of his power. I think the way that people are seeing him now, the way he's looking, he's not as strong. I do feel like that's going to be something that's going to end up affecting him and sort of damaging his presidency, and it might run him out of there. The way they release this information appears they're already trying to make a move toward J.D. Vance. Even they're talking about J.D. Vance met with Rupert Murdoch, about over this stuff, and J.D. Vance actually asked for the letter to be released. So it just, I don't know that he's gonna make it. I don't know that he's gonna be as powerful as we think he is at this point.
Wait, Michael, what happened to Vance?
J.D. Vance went to Rupert. J.D. Vance and Rupert Murdoch apparently met. That's what they're reporting. When this letter came out, that where Trump had the letter, the Epstein, the 22-year-old letter, and J.D. Vance, I think, publicly asked them to release the letter. But I haven't read, and this is like hearsay. So just let me, if it's wrong, excuse me. But the report is that him and Rupert Murdoch, he met with Rupert Murdoch. The J.D. Vance met with Rupert Murdoch. So it don't look like that worked out if that happened.
But do y'all actually think the Epstein files would be enough to have some people turn? Because there's some people who would just, where they idolize and worship this man to where it's to no ends. He can do no wrong in their eyes. I think I really think congestive heart failure get him before the Epstein files do, to really be honest. Because I think even if it does.
Let me tell you why I think it, and I agree that it may not. Here's the problem is that he built his whole thing on this. There's a lot of people I don't know if you see the Alex Jones stuff where Alex Jones was telling me he was gonna cry, he was about to throw up. He built so much on those files, and they were gonna get the Democrats. They were talking about the Democrats pedophiles, how they do children, the thing with the pizza place and the Podesta thing, and they were gonna get the Democrats. So they built all that fervor about it, and so in doing that, and even with the thing with Pam Bondi, they held up these documents, these minors that said Epstein files. I just think that he is based because he has these fanatical people. He's not looking good right now. He was gonna bring the swamp. He's gonna release the Epstein files, and he's done neither one of those. And it appears to be damaging. I'm just not saying on us, but if you look on on Twitter or whatever, all these social media sites and everything that's coming out, people murdering 90 hats over this thing. I do think that it's causing him some issues as far as his popularity, which could lead to down ballot when midterms come up and things. I just feel like that. I feel like there's some movement in it. It's not hard that's long base, so I can speak because my thoughts are like I wanted to land.
I agree, Michael. 100%.
Me too, and I think that's why they're trying to redistrict Texas and I don't know if other Republican states, we'll just say this one, and right now they're in a special session, and this special session was called, yes, they have bills for, marijuana and other whatever, but, and the flood victims and all that, but I really think all that, was a ploy for him to redistrict. Now the flood, no one can predict that or whatever, but I really think that he did that to call for redistricting in this state. And if Democratic states should fire back and do the same thing, if he's saying that it's legal for him to redistrict, then he said the Supreme Court gave him the ability to do this, then other states should be able to do the same thing that are not Republican. I mean, do I like Texas itself? Yeah, but I don't like the government and how stuff's run here. No, I don't like that. You know what I'm saying? So I wish that was different. I mean, we haven't had a Democrat in a long time. Ann Richards, since then, we haven't had anybody, and it's really hard to win here when you're any other party, when you talk about taking away guns or any kind of modification of that. that's just not a winning formula in Texas. It's really tough to win. Even Beto O'Rourke was very close. But when you start talking about guns and any modifications to that or whatever, they don't vote you in here. So it's been really hard. And I want, a Democrat to win or some other party besides the Republican. But it seems all of my life has been pretty Republican and it's up.
I mean, well, that's Texas.
You're in Texas.
But as far as the floods are concerned,
Those who predict.
Biden tried to give them $10 million. Actually, Biden gave them $10 million to make a warning system. And they took the $10 million because they didn't want it to go anywhere else. They got the $10 million, but they did not make a flood warning system. So let's not keep our head in the sand and pretend that everything is everything, because it's not.
And let's not forget that Trump stripped the National Weather Service. And then the fact is, they said they had warnings out there of a potential flood, that it could be a fast flood. But again, people don't listen. People don't listen. And they did say they didn't have the right person involved to have it, like, a warning come out, but they had been warned, I think a couple of days or a day prior. Thank you, Eagle Hawk, the NOAA. Thank you.
And then you have Trump trying to close or, take away things that the Weather Service needs and NOAA and all this other kind of stuff. And it's really bad when our state has some of the highest insurance claims, probably right there, California and others.
In Florida.
In Florida as well. And so we cannot have the Weather Service altered, shut down, a skeleton staff. That just does not work, because you see what happens. We got an old man answering a phone. That ain't gonna work. What? Like in some places, that's all you have. And state, resources, the guy comes on TV, the governor, we sent state resources, but nobody got the alert about those resources. So I don't understand that. Our state needs to modernize, and we too damn old in the way that, not everybody here, but some people are too old-fashioned in the way that they think. It's like trying to function on dial-up, and we live in 2025. That's how old our state, that's the only way I can explain it, and that's just not going to work when you have people calling out. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, or whatever. People lost their lives down there, and it's a tragedy that our state can't take money. Forget, the government sending money. The state has a rainy day fund, and someone said, even a Republican said, you could have took some of that money and, and the camp may be here today, right? Or the people may be here today, you know what I mean? Or whatever. But that didn't happen either. We're not even dipping into the funds that we have here to save lives. And that's really embarrassing. It makes our state look really bad when it comes to disasters. And this is why I've always believed that none of this stuff should be kicked to the states, because they're not equipped at all. Our state is stupid. I ain't finna count on these folks saving my life when they flee the state when something happens. No, this needs to stay in government hands with NOAA, not the state. Hell no.
Wasn't Cancun Cruise out of town again?
Yeah. Who? Okay. Cruz. Thank you, Ashley.
He was in Greece.
Right.
He was in Greece at the Pantheon.
All right. Your piece, did you come up here to talk about Epstein or anything? Hey, Sonny.
No, I just came up here to derail a little bit. I'm just listening. A lot of mixture of a lot of things. And living.
Okay. All right. Get your ad lib on.
Hey, Sonny. He left. That's the thing. I keep telling people. I don't know these people.
So, I just want to know where my MAGA friends at. Because I want to know, what's going on? There's some people saying that, they're going to turn that back on MAGA. I mean, MAGA's going to turn that back on Trump. I don't think so. I'm trying to gauge that based off of tonight's discussion. MAGA, if you're here, please come up. Still, while the First Lady Protection Plan is open, I will be open for another 5 minutes. I can protect you for 5 minutes. That's all I got. But yeah, come on up, because I'm trying to figure this out.
Well, your protection is light when I'm up on stuff.
Oh, no, bitch, don't do me like that. Come on now. But I just want to understand, hey, because here's the deal. Why are we not paying attention to all this deflection? That's what I want to know. I want to know from the MAGAs, why are we not paying attention to the deflection? Do you not see that as a red flag, or are we still just ignoring the red flags?
Because they're ignoring it, because they know what's actually recognizing the deflections would mean they're looking in their reflection and seeing what they voted for, and seeing who they chose, and seeing what the consequences of their votes are. They're never going to actually just sit down and admit. Now, there has been some people who were MAGA who have said, oh, I regret my vote, but most of them haven't, because they don't. Or you have those people who outright said that they wasn't going to do this, or they wasn't sure, or who didn't vote at all, but secretly did. I feel like if you didn't vote, you voted for him, in my eyes. And if you can't stand up that you voted for him, then you're a coward. And there was a lot of cowards, and it's just people who greed, people whose biases or racism, and people who basically wants the patriarchy to continue in the way it is. They want this country to remain a white, male-driven country, and that identity should remain. And it's just unfortunate because the things that they spoke of, Kamala Harris had a plan for it. She spoke on it, but it wasn't what you wanted to hear. The people were too busy. Oh, she's a woman. Oh, she's not black. She's Indian, and trying to figure out where her roots and all that stuff lay. And all these immigrants, but you have a son of the immigrant, and you have an immigrant as the first lady who y'all love, who coochie you can easily look up by going on Google. And who used a grant that she didn't even go to college in order to obtain to get citizenship here. So I'm just trying to figure out. It's just it's basically they don't want to look their hypocrisy in their face. They wanted other people, people of color to suffer. They wanted those they saw less than to suffer, and now they're suffering. So they're never going to actually admit. They're never going to say, oh, he's deflecting towards this and towards that. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. Even Candace Owens, she's trying to go on a forgiveness tour. Fuck you, Candace.
Wow. She wants to go on a forgiveness tour?
You ain't notice she trying to change up her rhetoric as a lady?
I know that she was changing it, but then I thought she kind of slid back, and then I heard she was sliding back over. So I don't know with Candace. I mean, she changes her position, like changes underwear. It goes back and forth. So no, I didn't.
People like her can't give her no credence because
she got that open door ticket, the open door.
Yeah, but she ain't even never been this, because as soon as somebody she like that's terrible again, she just don't like the Gaza issue. She's a weird one.
Hey, come on, let's give Candace Owens some credit. There's one thing about her that clearly she got locked down, and we need to give her flowers, and we need no controversy about it. She thinks some excellent wigs. Outside of that, she's been
excellent wigs.
No, She's a grifter.
She's not. Now we talking about a hustler. Marla can hustle the folks. She gets paid off her thing. I guess that's the best thing I can say. But her hair is terrible. Did you say she has good wigs?
Yes, I'm basically saying she's a paid. That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, wig is because that silk press.
But
it's a cotton press.
But it's a mess. But First Lady,
she got a polyester press.
But First Lady, have y'all discussed the Jubilee situation?
What Jubilee?
One of the boys wanted to losing his job.
Yes, he lost his job. He was happy to say he was a fascist, but he was able to get $13,000 off of GoFundMe.
You like that socialism now?
Who y'all talking about? Who you talking about?
The one that called himself a racist on.
No, he called himself a fascist.
Yeah.
The base of racist and a fascist.
I don't even know what Jubilee is. I'm gonna have to go look at it.
It's rage bait. It's rage bait. That's basically what it is. It's rage bait. I even seen something where it was college students versus streamers.
Don't watch it.
It's like a podcast or something.
No, ma'am.
It's not a podcast. It's like a experimental, social experimental, and they ask people like questions, and then they let them like argue each one of the questions. You gotta watch one at a time because it's gonna have you pissed off.
I put like a part of the link. Is it a website?
Yeah, it's a YouTube channel.
Oh, okay. They incorporate us into these silent studies. Y'all don't even be knowing. Y'all be interviewing for shit the whole time. It'd be a reparation study. You don't even know it. They have all these studies out here, and we supposed to stick to these fucking studies. How many studies do we need?
I put the link in the chat if you guys want to see the latest one that they're talking about.
It's a great show. I love it.
That's so cool.
Where my sister at?
I was like, where my sister at?
Where professional
My motherland sis.
circular? Professional circular. Professor circular. Lady, I agree with you. Just real quick, I agree with you on the. I think the. You remember? I mean, y'all heard Charlie Clerk. He was so mad about the pedophilia. He was like, "Fuck Trump." And then as soon as the Obama stuff came out, now he all over Obama. He forgot about Trump.
He got a phone call. That's why.
To me, that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna circle their wagons around.
You got
A common enemy.
Charlie Kirk got a phone call from the White House.
Them folk do not care about women.
Right.
I
don't think they do either, Just. It seems like to me it's all performative because why can't you be mad about both, right? But to me, they went straight to Obama. They ain't said nothing else about the pedophilia. And to me, it's like they have taken this 5 weeks. It reminds me of the football team when they get in the huddle, and talk it over. They done took 5 weeks off to talk it over. They needed to get out of town so they don't get hung up by Trump. And between J.D. Vance and whatever he got going on the side and the Republicans, they needed to go talk it over and figure out what they're going to do. So they left the Obama and the MLK stuff hanging in the wind and think that that's the red meat that we're supposed to chew on while they talking it over in the huddle.
The magical thing about Trump is that he knows how to control a news cycle. That's been the only successful thing, in my view, of his entire career. And I think what he's continued to do over this course of this week is continue to change the headlines. So there's no talk about Epstein, and it's talk about every other thing that he does to distract from the core things, to try to vitiate what's happening with his base. In fact, today, when the speaker left the House and they said that they were going to recess for the rest of the summer, they did that because they don't want to fracture the base. So they continue to change the headlines so people remain distracted.
The Epstein stuff is beyond his control at this point.
Yeah, but I just wonder, I just wonder when the actual
Women, hold up. Man.
Yeah.
Your mic is open.
Yeah.
Are you okay? Huh?
Yes.
Are you able to close it?
Oh, I saw that real quick. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, that's all I wanted because it was giving mad feedback from the I was just saying that I will say I do give him that he is able to control the news cycle. But the thing is that when are reporters going to actually not allow this to become a state driven? Because at this point, I'm like Jake Tapper, CNN, all the rest of these people.
they just allow this man to keep controlling what they talk about instead of just sticking to the fact is that this is insane, and they know what it is. You've been dealing with this man do this since 2015. So I'm just trying to understand how do they allow this to keep going? I just don't understand.
When we have for-profit news groups like that, that's what their job is to get viewers. And so whatever is most popular in the headlines, they're gonna talk about, and that's what the advertisers want. So that's when you have that's why you have to change the incentives and you change the behavior.
Yeah,
I think it's a big deal. That's a big deal. I think people should keep talking about it, and CNN talked about it the other night. So they need to stay on it and keep the fire lit, because that is something that if you're messing with underage kids, I don't care who you are. Republicans, some called it out, and they should continue to stand up. Please do.
I think it's partly, we know that the for-profit media industry has existed in our country forever. I think let's set that to the side for a second. I think the main thing is the authoritarian way in which Trump is ruling. So, for example, the Wall Street Journal publishes a letter about Epstein's birthday. What does he do? He sues. And what happens is it paralyzes them from being able to continue to do what the media is intended to do, what the press is intended to do in this country, which is to be the fourth estate. And so they are hampered, in my view, in so many ways because of fear of reprisal. Look what happened to CBS and 60 Minutes. He continues to do this. Think about how much money the president's family has received as a result of these lawsuits for him going after the media. So in many ways, again, it goes back to this idea of consolidating power and keeping the House, the Senate, the courts, all in line with this sort of authoritarian bureaucratic rule that people continue to ignore, in my view. I don't think people take that seriously at all.
Let me counter that. This suit, because the one you mentioned against the Wall Street Journal.
Well, it was no color. If I want to be honest,
Spanish or Portuguese or any other ethnic group that came to this country thought of themselves as American. They understood, yeah, I'm Italian, but I'm American now. I'm British, but I'm from England, not the original ones, but I'm American now. I'm from Germany, but I'm American now. That was always part of the idea of the country. It was a melting pot. It wasn't a salad.
Yeah, let's just be clear. Yeah, but the melting pot, this is where it starts to become disingenuous, because until 1965, from literally, we can look when Americans first colonized this, into after the Revolutionary War, to the first Congress and the first Immigration Act in 1790. Immigration was limited to white people, period. And even amongst white people, yeah, we let some Southern Europeans and Eastern Europeans in. They ended up putting a limit on that, I believe, in 1924, so that it preferred Northwestern Europeans as opposed to Southern and Eastern Europeans. But we definitely had a concept of what was at least considered acceptable to become American. And it was, yes, a lot of white people, be it my family makes fun of Italians and the Irish. Sorry, both sides of your family, doctor. Make fun of. That was also very American for us to make fun of other ethnic groups of Europeans, and even look at them as being beneath us and that kind of shit. But at the end of the day, it's just do we trust these people to work in our country? Would we, at the end of the day, most likely let our doctor marry one of their men? Yeah, that's how we saw it. But we did not want the demographic changes we saw. And in 1965, when the Hart-Celler Act was signed under Lyndon B. Johnson, believe it was Robert Kennedy said, it will not affect the demography of America, which was absolute bullshit. We went from being like a 90% white country to now, I mean, it was like 57 point something in 2020. That's if you exclude the MENA population. And, you know, now it's probably below 55. I don't, like, this is, and yeah, it's causing, you're seeing a reaction now where white people, not only do they notice, like, hey, they never had to notice their race before, because, hey, everybody else is white. That does not make you special. But it's like, how does that make me special? Every motherfucker I know is white. But then it's just like when we see the demographics change, and then we see all of the political rhetoric surrounding it, where race and ethnicity is being weaponized. We're being told that we should, not only should we not be proud of our heritage, but we don't actually have a heritage. We're nobody. Tell me if this sounds familiar, Mikhail.
Not as white people, not under the term.
No, but hold on. But what is a Palestinian? What is a Palestinian? You guys didn't exist. Palestinian, what is that? That's a nothing.
I agree.
Okay, but you get the weaponization against your fucking identity. You're told that you're not a fucking people, that your history is irrelevant, that you're a bunch of fucking nobodies, and that you should just embrace the demographic change. That is, which is absolutely fucking insulting. And so, yes, we are, unfortunately, just like how all of the people in the Arab region, which, you know, North Africa, the Levant, the Saudi, the Arabian Peninsula, you guys are also a fucking ethnic group that is far more like each other than different.
I understand what you're saying. The Arabs are, you know, you would say they're not just. They don't see themselves as a race. They see themselves like Italians see themselves. So these are people, you can't really become part of them, you know, in a way. Like, they have their own history, they value lineages, they value being Italian or Arab. In America, whiteness dissolves this. So the one who used to hold to Italian heritage or Scottish or whatever European heritage is now abandoning that or ignoring that or no longer putting effort in that. Why? Because they want
to. It was abandoning for a reason.
Of white.
They wanted to. They wanted it because they were embracing a new heritage. Monica came in. They're abandoning it because they were abandoning it not just for the hell of it, they were abandoning it for a nationality, a new nationality called Americanism. So when you get up here like some kind of third-rate gay studies teacher from Stanford, you're incorrect. They abandoned it because of the very reason that you said didn't exist. They abandoned it because of a nationalist draw. They wanted to become American, a nation of Americans. And you're absolutely right in the fact that all of those people abandoned their heritages, abandoned their language, and have very little left to do with their original countries. But some people would call it, they abandoned it for whiteness. You know, some people who want to destroy the country and have really strange thoughts on power structures, whatever, like maybe yourself. But what they were really doing was abandoning it for a national heritage. So nationalism is the furthest thing from a new phenomenon. Nationalism has been the goal of Europeans pretending to be white for 150 years plus. So you're absolutely incorrect on that.
And I'll add a couple of seconds of thought too, including the fact that this beating over the head of us with whiteness and upholding whiteness and this white supremacy and it's maintaining white ethno-nationalism is bullshit. It's people assimilating into American culture. We don't tell them to give up their traditions. We honor people's religions and traditions as long as they fit into the patchwork quilt that is our country. And also, Mikhail, your earlier statements.
Tremendously, what you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I've ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is on
Okay, I mean, I guess, Mikhail, I would say this, like, and this is what I think a lot of people that are not European don't understand, is that we look at Europeans for the most part as, and of course it was not necessarily the case when new arrivals came here, but we looked at each other, we at least looked at each other as being more similar than the rest of the world. And then we do look at other European ethnic groups as being, like, I guess you could say, one of us. They're our brothers and sisters.
I understand what the white project is. I get this notion of, I'm not saying, this notion of building a nation is a bad thing. I'm just saying, even if you want to build a nation, you got to understand what the state is and what were the foundations, or what is the relationship between the state that was created by these early migrants, who are usually considered of the same race, and what were they trying to build? And they were trying to build a systematic state, something that is systematic, that doesn't rely on human fallibility like a monarch. So they wanted to create like an automated, way authority. That's what they wanted to do. And they enforced laws and checks and balances, and they made this very systematic, man. And sure, like, this is the ideal, and those people, they had migrants come in who weren't necessarily of their own race. And yes, there was tension, and that kind of tension, the state was never able to eliminate it. So there's always this new arrival coming, and their integration faces pushback until a new migrant class arrives. And this is what's been going on in America.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah, but
what's wrong with that is
What's
wrong with that is that the new migrant that's arriving cannot blend in whiteness. So your project of building a nation based on whiteness, they can't be incorporated in that.
They're not supposed to.
So now this is going to lead, and
it takes time.
But if you end up taking over, and you bring this nation, the throne of our state, of this systematic state, this is what you're gonna value.
Who is you? We don't know what you're talking about. Who is you? If you take over.
I'm speaking in general as the left,
But
take it easy. I know Mikhail. He has good faith conversations. So
yeah, I just want to know what he's talking about.
Yeah, so the left in general is very diverse. And this diverse, I'm not saying there aren't white people or even white passing people, but I'm saying this is pretty diverse, and where a strong portion of it, or a strong demographic within it, it can't be incorporated in whiteness. And now, so they're gonna see, they're gonna advocate for avenues and for ways that don't make this a glass ceiling for them. Because if you end up taking over, and then ideal is going to be whiteness, and they're just never going to be white. For them, like, they're always going to have a disadvantage. So why would they support your project?
They are going to be white, right? Every one of those groups that you named was the national nigger for a certain period of their entrance into the United States and men's. Every single one of those groups. And so it's okay to not be able to blend in right away. It takes work to become part of something great. That's what us fake Europeans pretending to be white did. And why should, I don't know, whoever you're talking about, Black people, Mexicans, anybody from south of the border, like, why should they just walk in and have it all to themselves right away with no effort and no work? They'll treat it poorly. We know when people are given things with no work that they treat it poorly. It's okay to be that America needs a eternal lower class. The problem is that eternal lower class doesn't have to be the same group of people every single time. It goes in stages. It doesn't have to be Black people. It doesn't even have to be Mexicans. We could get Chinese pretty soon that could come in here, and they could be the lower class. It could be any group people, that's the next lowest place, but they have to pay their dues, and there's nothing inherently evil or wrong about that, just like there's nothing evil or wrong about a system that works very well, relatively.
I mean, I would say this, like, I don't mean this, like, I know that, you know, obviously you're of a different faith, but, like, would I welcome in, like, give relatively easy access to the United States, and this is where people are gonna be like, oh, you're a sellout, you're a fake white nationalist, which is fine. I don't have a problem with Middle Eastern Christians getting citizenship like super easily here in the United States, because they're like, first of all, they're not going to have a mass migration to the United States because they're small in number, and they generally just kind of, yeah, they're definitely different first, even second generation, but you know they don't.
You're trying to see the quantum leap. That's what you're trying to do right now. You're trying to see how, you know, this policy is going to affect the far future. The problem is you're looking 1-2 generations, and you're saying, yeah, I have a strong probability in my mind that, you know, this is what the future, the imminent future is going to look like. Now you're talking about 2 generations.
But even in one generation, what problem do
we're talking about a nation. When you see the problem again, Americans, individualism. The problem again, every policy that you're considering on a statewide kind of level, you need to look not just 2 generations. You need to look 100 years, and you need to look 500 years, and you know, and what would this policy? Now all your probabilities have fallen because you can't see that far into the condition of the state. So at this point, you're going to have to assume scenarios. And is it plausible now? Is this, if I adopt this policy, you need to ask yourself, is it plausible? Not probable. If it's plausible, because this is the far future, you don't know the conditions. So it's all going to enter into plausibility now. So you're going to have to know, is it plausible that if I maintain this policy, that I can still maintain whiteness? And what I'm talking about is that anybody who's advocating for the white race and associating this like with America and the future vision needs to ask themselves, do I, by adopting this principle, saying that America must be white at all costs?
No,
at least white has.
No, I don't. I think even people like me, first of all, with white dropping birth rates, I do think that what a lot of white nationalists don't understand is that the first thing they'll bitch about is like, oh, everything's measured in GDP. I don't give a fuck about GDP. You know, what is it? We can't even afford homes now, which is, you know, a lot of this rhetoric is true. However, in order to remain like the dominant superpower that's more innovative than other countries, you really do have to have a large percentage or a good percentage of your population that is talented and very, you know, well educated and capable. And so you're going to have.
That's what you're. So social.
No.
The opposite. Go ahead.
So you're going to, at the end of the day, as much as I cringe thinking about bringing in some high IQ, you know, robot from India or China, like I do realize, like to a degree, like you're gonna have to bring some of these people in.
That's why we suffer it, because we do have to bring them in. We suffer it because there's a benefit.
Yes, and I would say even Mexicans, like the thing with it, I grew up in Phoenix.
Birthright?
Well, because it's not indefinite. This will be the most controversial piece. You know, we've prolonged the lives of sub-Saharan Africans. They were living on average into their 30s, but then we started bringing in food aid, bringing in medicine that they did not create HIV drugs, which they're only taking, you know, they're not the most responsible people, so they don't really take it responsibly and regularly. Their birth rates their life expectancy is about doubled. Even though birth rates around the globe have gone down, theirs are very high. Now, I'm going to be very frank, and a lot of people are going to say this is super racist. I'm sorry, but the trouble I expect from the Hispanic people that immigrate here, I think they bring some dysfunction and corruption maybe, but it's not world ending. It just might make your country a little less pleasant to live in. East Asians, well, in a lot of ways, they commit less crimes than whites. They're less likely to be drug addicts. They're less likely to, they're generally going to outperform us, but they're just like, I don't want to get into it, not very creative people. But then, if I have to look at sub-Saharan Africans, I'm sorry.
Why are we making this about the Africans? Forget it.
Well, sure, but okay. This is why. No. This is the pattern. This is the pattern that you're not understanding. Okay, this wave of Latin American immigrants that we've seen flooding across our border. Yes.
That's really what you're saying.
Hold on, but you didn't let me finish. I'll tie it together. This wave of Latin Americans. Okay, and Latin Americans are probably the most assimilated non-whites that exist in the world. At least to whites, especially in America. They're partial white ancestry. They have the same religion. They speak a European language. Yes, exactly. Now, their birth rates are fucking tanking real fast. This is seen as the last generation of mass migration from Latin America because they're not going to need to have people coming into our country from their countries. And they're also industrializing. Mexico's getting better economically year over year. Their birth rates are plummeting. The type of immigrants we are used to getting, we're not going to have the supply of them. Just like we stopped having a supply of immigrants from Europe, we're not going to have a supply of immigrants from Latin America. Asia, look at East Asia. Their birth rates have hit the shitter. They're not going to immigrate here. So who do we have left? We have sub-Saharan Africans. That's why I'm focused on them. That is actual long-term thinking. This is something that's been discussed
I get
quite a bit.
But you got to ask yourself, well, what led to that problem to begin with? And you would say, well, loose border patrol allowed people to just enter the country.
No, it's not border patrol.
Entry, exit out of this country, whatever. Entry into this country, whatever. Whatever you want to call it. There was a lax attitude on this, and now we're suffering the consequences. That's what you think. That's what you're thinking, because you're a conservative. But if you're
not a conservative,
you are in the way of thinking. But if you were a progressive would ask themselves, who allowed this to happen? Who didn't think in the future? Seeing once you saw the first phenomenon of this, like assuming you were caught off guard, that this wasn't dealt with. And then who would have
where are you getting FDR was to the right of me, and he was progressive.
Where were you getting that conservatives don't think about the future?
Alan, just one last
I'm sorry, no. I've been trying to get in for 10 minutes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Where do you get that conservatives don't think about the future? To answer your question,
Alan, let him finish, and then you can uninterrupted. Just let him, because I interrupted.
Yeah,
so just let him go, and then you can go uninterrupted. Just go ahead and finish, Mikhail.
Yeah, just like any investigator at a crime scene, you're going to ask also who benefits from this. That is going to be your main suspects. And you're going to ask yourself, if the condition could have been dealt with, if someone could be held responsible for allowing what we believe these unfortunate consequences, we should put them accountable. And we need to ask ourselves, we really need to look at those suspects. And
how can we hold them accountable?
But who are those suspects?
Okay, like the Cato Institute. You had the new right. You had the Barry Goldwaters.
It's the oligarchy in America, the one who benefited the most out of allowing these illegal immigrants, or from the situation or the unfortunate consequences, which is illegal immigration. Those people are the ones who made
but that is
not us. Not the lower social class. masses.
No, I get it. Yes, people like me, I get it. But small business owners, when I'm talking about people who own restaurants, you know, they're a contractor, you know, the construction industry. All of these people. Okay, but like here in Phoenix, like it really, right? There's such illegal immigrants are such a big part of our fucking economy. Like. It's like, is it just the people that...
No. It's not a great part of our economy. There's a lot of what...
Well, they are in Phoenix.
There's a lot of what you believe your race, you know, is, you know, a lot of those people are unemployed. A lot of those people don't want to work. A lot of those people feel like work isn't worth it. Why? Because I'm practically not making much more than this illegal immigrant.
Yeah, because we have a bunch of Mexicans coming in and cutting the wage rate down to $3 an hour.
That's only for the lower economic class.
Exactly.
But I did cut off. Alan gets to go uninterrupted. Everybody let Alan go.
Well, I mean, you've touched on so many points. I'll see what I can remember, but it's, look, 100 years from now, we can look back through history and look back at what happens at any country that allows its borders to be overrun by people of a different race or ethnic group. If you're living in Scotland and it's suddenly filled with Swedes, it's going to become Sweden. It's not going to become Scotland anymore. And to answer your most recent question, who's responsible? Well, it was the Southern Democrats who promoted slavery in the United States. And to be fair, slavery was used all over the world at the time it happened. I don't know why you make that thing, because that was the tip. At that time, the way you brought in your cheap labor was through slavery. And now it turned out that as an economic system, it was a failure. And I've heard, but I don't remember, that slavery would have ended as an economic system, independent of even if the Civil War hadn't happened, but the Civil War brought it to an end. So directly, they are the ones responsible, and then jump forward 100 or so years, and who was it who changed the immigration laws to allow non-whites in? Again, it was the Democrats. Now, up until recently, you had both Democrats and Republicans. You can look at the situation here in California. You had Democrats who wanted illegal immigrants from Mexico because that helped them create a voter base. And you had businesses here in California who wanted the illegal immigrants too because they could use it for cheap labor, et cetera, et cetera. But the numbers were relatively low compared to what happened under the Biden administration. But the larger point, which you touched on and goes back, is first of all, what I object to is the way that whiteness or white culture or Western European ideals, there's always some sort of subtext of disparaging that culture. And that, in fact, and I'll say it again, that it is white culture that has elevated the entire world. And that it is white culture that this country was founded on. And the fact that there are fringe groups who are ultra-nationalistic, ultra-racist, most whites reject them because of their views and see them as harmful. But all whites get painted with that paintbrush.
Do you not see that, like, maybe one of the flaw? Well, first of all, I think, like, Europeans in general, I'm going to say it's cultural, I'm not saying it's, like, innate to us, but, like, there's a level of altruism that we have, but then Christians, we have a universalist
Here you go, want to conflate whiteness is what it looks like today, and you know, all the way on the spectrum to white passing, do you want to maintain this state of affairs, you know, throughout the future? This is something that, okay, so yes, so this is at this point.
But
It's not about culture.
It's more detailed than that.
It's about aesthetic.
No, this white passing.
No.
Okay, but this white passing bullshit.
I'm not denying that there is a culture. I'm saying
yes, and nobody is saying it's necessarily innate to white people.
It's not a cultural.
Okay, let me, Mikhail.
What is standing, Mikhail, is that we're not trying to. It's not aesthetic.
Can we talk
Right?
about
Plenty of groups. No, we can't. Plenty of groups of people have become white that are nowhere near white. It's a culture, and what you don't understand is that we Europeans pretending to be white and black people and other groups who have now been able to achieve whiteness because it's a state of mind in 2025 where it never was before, full to the real whites who actually created this country and created the system that you hate so much. It's not perfect, but those real whites create. You talk disparagingly that America might be bad because it's so systematized. Well, the real whites created something that brings people up from poverty, that brings other groups of people into a state of middle class and upper middle class. The state of America that the real whites made, we should have gratitude to these people. They didn't have to do shit to us. I'm so thankful to these real whites for letting my disgusting European potato farm pasta eating ass into this country. I'm not joking. I am so thankful for these people creating something like this because they didn't have to do it. And when you go and trash it the way you have or disparage it the way you have, it's like you're just as ungrateful as any woman. And that's what's really hurtful and disgusting about the attitude that the progressives have. They're so ungrateful all of the time. All of the time.
And I'm curious what your distinction is, Mikhail, between white culture and what you define as whiteness, because I know whiteness can be used as a disparaging term. At least I've heard it used that way. To me, they're both the same, but maybe there's a distinction that you can, clarification you can make that will help, at least,
no one, I don't think people who champion the concept of white race, which I understand in a way, that like, I do believe I'm white passing, and I can incorporate myself into the project per se. It's on the spectrum, but it's accessible, and so you can become part of these circles in a way. And I feel like I've engaged in these circles, and they don't want, this notion of a future in where you have just the 70% of the country black, and they're all just wearing polar shirts, or and they're acting white.
But that's statistical.
They're literally at Chad. 1 second, last point. They're literally Chad and Kevin. No, I don't think that's what people who advocate for the white race want. So you can, in this reality, but just in this universe, you can see that even if the culture is maintained and everybody's acting like Chad and Kevin, but if they're 70% black, you're not gonna like that future. That's not the future you believe in when you advocate for the white race as a priority.
That's not true. That future doesn't exist because that's not what statistics say about people that are of the sub-Saharan Africa race. If it did say that, we would be. Well, I can't speak for everybody. I'm not a real racist. I just
usually
on TV.
My point.
But if the statistics said that group of people and we let them overtake our fake white people as a dominant group in America, if statistics said that they would carry on that tradition of what we learned from the real whites, I wouldn't give a shit at all.
So I would say this.
I feel you shifted. I feel like you caught yourself right
I don't think he has.
No. One second. You tell me if you have.
I had said this. I said this earlier.
Proved otherwise, then you would lead to. So I'm just saying that he is affirming. He is affirming.
No, but he's not. Like I said, when it comes to demographic change, I think that as somebody who's like, you know, I rarely engage with these people anymore, but I know a lot of the people, especially from the 2010s that were part of the alt-right and, you know, that were white nationalists, all of that shit. They have a lot of extremely disparaging things to say about that movement, especially today. Now it's kind of gone like mainstream, and you have a lot of grifters. I wanted to get into it, but I do, like, you know how I said earlier how I would give. I'm perfectly fine with just giving, like, as long as you're not like a criminal or something like that. I'm just giving Christian Middle Easterners easy access to the United States. I really do not care about that.
I remember you saying that.
And so, like, it's not. This is not. You're no different, really, racially than those people. But they are way easier to assimilate, in my opinion. And I've seen your picture. You're a good-looking guy.
I understand.
You can pass as Southern European.
I understand. I'm white.
Yeah, but I mean, you're obviously, though, like, you do have, like, that is part. It's not because of your race. It is because of, I would say, like, you have a very different outlook because you come from a different religion, different. You know,
Mikhail, you're from the Middle East, yes?
No, I'm from America, but I've lived there. I've experienced that world. I put a lot of time.
Okay. Where were you?
It's not really necessary.
Parents are Palestinian. I'll just say
they are Palestinian.
All right. I say that. Look, there are two types of immigrants to this country. The ones who come and embrace it and the ones who come and hate it. By the third generation, they will be their grandchildren will be American whether they want it or not. That's the way this country works. It doesn't matter the politics, anything else, because the bottom line is unless this country fundamentally changes, most people can get in their car and go where they want to go. They can go to school. They can pick their own jobs. And the sense of freedom in this country is unparalleled. The attitude of Americans, that will not change, regardless.
Do you understand what Elder Do you understand what Elder Allen just said? Do you understand what he said? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so
I don't.
Yeah, but
he's old, but he's not stupid.
Alan is a Middle Eastern Christian, by the way. So.
Yeah, well, but see, that was the other thing I was going to say. Because I'm born here too. Say that again?
He's not Jewish. Everybody accuses him of being Jewish.
Yeah, because I come from the East Coast. They associate East Coast accent with Jewish.
Don't you come from the West Coast? You're always talking about California.
No, I live in Massachusetts.
I'm to the East Coast. I don't feel like a lot of people talk like that.
Yeah, it's hard for me to talk.
He is special. He's ours. Go ahead.
Thank you, Doctor. I appreciate that. But the other thing is that, I remember I was going to say two things. I'll make it quick. First of all, you know, when I first moved to California, the issue of Mexicans, you know, shaming other Mexicans for selling out and adopting American culture was very strong. It's gone away. They don't care anymore. You don't hear about that. You don't hear it in political discussions, nothing. It's become a non-issue because that was, I don't know how decades ago, but the point is their kids and their grandkids are now American. And that ends all of that debate. And someone who has Middle Eastern background and is someone from a population of only about 1.5 million in the entire country, who has always lived as a minority, even though I am white. There is always that cultural tug, and there is nothing wrong. You need, and I feel like part of this is personal for you, like perhaps.
Trying to take this the wrong path.
Because a laptop repairs store.
Say that again.
Well, let him write it out.
Okay. I'm getting the sense that maybe, and I could be wrong, that part of this is your own exploration of how you fit in to American culture yourself. Maybe I'm wrong, and if I am, forgive me, but it's quick. There is nothing wrong with maintaining your own culture and embracing American culture as well. And the two can coexist extremely well without any conflict.
He is a liar.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily disagreeing, nor do I believe that, my political thought stems from, my loyalty to a different culture or even religion. I believe I can objectively analyze what's going on in the state, and I can establish a future prediction. And that's what it is. I'm trying to zoom out, and I want to see, and I believe that one of the main problems with states or with nations is that they think about now, and they're consumed with individualism, and think instead of thinking about the collective and prioritizing the collective, which is to zoom out and look at the future and to go, how would this policy, if established, if it becomes ironclad, and how would this translate in the future? Just like how you have birthright. Did the people who established birthright, did they look into the future and calculate like consequences of this and what this would mean? Did they even entertain the concept of whiteness? Did they even do that? What was their trajectory for the future? Did they even have one? And if they didn't have one, at this point, I would criticize that, which I believe is, anything anti-progressive. That kind of thought pattern that doesn't let people think into the future and take that as a consequence. So that's the question. And if you're gonna blame, last point, please. If Alan is gonna blame the Democrats or the Southern Democrats or all that, you're gonna need to go to that point where you believe that policy was the detrimental policy. And you're going to ask yourself, who benefited off of that? Who made the most money off of that or gained the most power out of that? And that is going to be your suspect. And you need to translate his motives. And that's what I'm telling you to do.
There's too many. Yeah, I get it, but there's so many suspects at that point because there's so many people who'd make money off it. But I remember
there is, which is goes back
but the Cal.
Because we did that circle. Trump.
Yes. Yeah, so I did state that I do think that like with the title in my room, I think that if you're a devoted Catholic, you're going to put your religion first, above your country, above your race, above everything. I do think it's of the Abrahamic religions. I think if you're a diehard adherent, that's just how you're going to be.
I agree. People are loyal to their religion, whatever. I get that. People have ideals, and they're loyal to those ideals, and it depends. And there's always going to be tension if there's, the ideals are not incorporated by the state, or the state goes against it. I understand that. I get it, but that's not the point of it.
But do you think that? Okay, but like I would say, if you were, I'm going to go with all. I'm not going to say Jews don't proselytize, but I do think if you had if you have a very strong, like Catholic first population and a strong Muslim first population, we're going to butt heads, like period. But it's just how it's going to be.
That's why shut the freaking
like,
door.
can you see how, like, just for example, like, just the two, just like those two demographics where maybe they're not meant to coexist with each other.
Well, I mean, if you want to entertain the whole Jewish problem,
Come on, Najee, you're gonna cause more emotional problems. You gotta be around and be a good moderator, Najee. You're losing the audience. You're losing the narrative. Come on, Najee, get with it, get organized, Najee.
Every Jew, many Jews can be considered white, but last point, not many whites can be considered Jews, and so there's always gonna be.
Yeah, you're either born Jewish because your mom's Jewish.
I understand, but regardless of how you want to explain it, that discrepancy will exist, and there's always gonna be this tension. This tension is always gonna exist. And you have to take that tension into consideration because, the system that we have today allows Jews and their national loyalty to, compete at the top, at the decision-making of the state. White nationalism.
That is a threat if it was true. You're right.
It is a threat.
Can you repeat your point again? Because I thought it was something I really wanted to talk about. The main overarching point about this whole white thing. You say it one more time?
Okay, there are 2 points, and because I feel like we're losing what we originally were talking about, because we were talking about Trump. But I'm telling you, Trump is the result, because this whole conversation started about, like, Trump coming into play and why Trump is there. At the end of the day, Trump is a conservative now because he wants to maintain the status quo of the suspects that benefited the most out of making these policies. That you, as a conservative or a right-winger, believe they need to be abolished. That's the problem. And Trump is a champion of that. So Trump is someone who wants to... Trump is someone who is coming as a messiah for those who already see the quantum leap. They already see the trajectory to the future. And at this point, you want to dig in your heels and you want to try to prevent a future that you want to hear. 1 second.
I'm not trying to interrupt you. I don't know what you're saying.
Later, he was talking about this earlier, so I don't think.
Yeah, can you just be a bit more descriptive?
Jason's been here for a while, but I'll let you go, Jason, after Mikhail.
Can you be a little bit more descriptive?
But the conversation was already going on before. Like, I don't.
Yeah, but can you be more descriptive? Because there's about 25% more people in the room now. Your main point about whiteness and the system.
Talking about and where the.
Say it one more time.
Okay, the conversation started because we were talking about Trump and the reasons that brought about Trump.
Your main point,
and whether he is actually a solution to what you believe or not, or whether, engaging in these policies today that we see if actually are going to change anything at this point.
I think you're
telling you what we are going to prevent the future, the trajectory. What is happening isn't enough, and even if it would change, it isn't going to change anything. What you want is extremely radical to get rid of that trajectory that you can see, that you believe, and just that trajectory that is going to jeopardize what you hold as an ideal, whiteness.
So he's basically saying how, like,
whiteness is an ideal.
No. Marshall, you just came in. Like, he was establishing that, like, if what we hold as of high value, like whiteness, and then but do we actually in the long term see where that's going to lead? And we were talking about how, like, election terms and even in the when it comes to large corporations, they look at, like, the different quarters, and you're evaluated, judged by that. A lot of this seems short term, but I mean, it's somewhat. I'm not going to entirely disagree with what Mikhail is saying. I disagree with most of it, but I mean, I don't think America really looks at anything long
I
term.
guess the point is, if you're going to prioritize race, and we establish what the ideal of the white race is, and we establish there's a distinction between this ideal and culture, and all I'm telling you is that the way the system is right now is not going to prevent the trajectory that is fueling all the people who are advocating for the white race.
Okay, the white race. Okay, the only
Trump isn't your guy. That's my point.
No, we know that, but at the end of the day, he's not a pro white person, in my opinion. Like,
Exactly.
at the end of the day, do we care if you're non-white? But it's just like, okay, there's going to be continuity when it comes to how this country runs. It's similar to how us, when we were majority white, how we ran the country. Okay, fine. Like, that relieves most of the anxiety that we had about us becoming less of a white country. That's
but
that's not the crux of the problem.
It's not how we even look at it. Like, you're talking about, I don't even know anybody. Pepe doesn't even agree with this. But in order for your argument to be true, you would have to have, like, more than, let's even say 10% of the people who voted for Trump and the people who are on that side of the equation. You'd have to have more than 10% of those people believe the way you just laid out the argument. The problem is, we just spent 40 minutes laying out the argument to you that it doesn't have to do intrinsically with somebody's race. Black people can be white today. They can participate in whiteness today because it's a state of mind, and the barriers have been taken away. They couldn't do that 30 years ago, or even 20 years ago. What the definition of whiteness is really the American dream, and that's what you're not understanding. The American dream is available to all people now for the first time in history, and you're not okay with that because you want to box everybody into this ridiculous construct of whiteness that you believe, which none of us believe in. So there we go.
Only a small number of conservatives believe in this kind of thing.
I already established that he has believed in it. Anybody who's advocating.
I think a lot of conservatives believe in what Dr. Responsible and Pepe are talking about, which is institutional continuity, right? Conservatism is about applying old solutions to new problems, you might say, like time-tested strategies, and that's what it's really about, and it's not about, like, particular people or something like that, and I don't think it's been thought of that way until very recently, that you start to see, okay, this like clash of civilizations version of conservatism.
That's right.
Yeah, so again, we already established that the ideal of the white race is to maintain an aesthetic. We've already established.
No, you said that, and we talked about it.
It's not an aesthetic.
Agreed.
No, it's not an aesthetic. It's not an aesthetic. It's not an aesthetic. Guys, don't call each other names. I know it's offensive as I am. I'll suck it. But it's not, okay, once again, like, there is, like I said, I have a comfortability with, like, for example, Mexicans that I will not get with Muslims, African immigrants, even Asian immigrants, just to be honest, just because they're more similar to us in the West. Which, yeah, I guess you could say they're kind of part of the West. There is, at the end of the day, what do I care? Why would anybody care about demographic change? Sure, I think there's maybe this extremely small percentage of people that make a value judgment where they feel like, well, these people are just somehow shittier than us, they're trashier than us, I don't like these people, I don't want to look at them. Okay, that's fine. I mean, everybody can have their opinions, but what people like me, the reason I've talked about this for years is not because I hate other groups of people or necessarily think they're inferior. It's because I literally want to see this country in the path that it's been on to continue. That is literally what I care about the most. My anxiety about this is completely erased when I see that we can bring people into this country that will assimilate, that are not going to And what the Democrats have really done the last, I would say 15 years or so is demonize the native population of America, particularly the whites. They would not only criticize our country's founding, they would say it's illegitimate. We're not. There's no reason for us to be proud of who we are. We're, basically a bunch of shitty colonizers. Nothing but. Yeah, and we pillaged, raped, enslaved people. We're just shitty. We don't deserve to exist. All of you brown people, just go. Yeah, come on in. You guys will make this country a better place. That is so fucking offensive.
I want to point out some statistics on this. So, the white population has decreased since the founding of the country, around 73% to 58% now. Black folk have actually decreased since the founding of the country. It was about 15 to 20%. Today, they're down to about 12% of the population. The only population that has made significant impact in their demographics is the Hispanic Latin population. They come out to about 19%. They weren't necessarily maybe counted, or they weren't as prominent from the founding on till now. So progressives are putting all their eggs in the basket that, the Hispanic voters are going to vote for their ideas, because, there isn't this major shift in population outside of the Hispanics. And as of right now, from what we saw in 2024, the Democrats don't really have a monopoly over the Hispanic vote.
The Asian also, the Asian, you have to bring
up to 6%. So Asian are up to 6%, and two or more races are 4%. But these numbers are still so small in comparison. There is not like this overburdening or overwhelming perception that the white race is just going to disappear.
No, I agree, but I just want to say on the Asian one and break it down, because we lumped all of Asia together. But if you look at the Chinese, Korean, that population, they are increasingly more conservative. And leaning much more towards Republican, and we saw a lot of it after the Harvard case, that so many of them have turned more red. So I think that's an interesting demographic to pay attention to.
So the whole point I'm making here is that we saw the Democrats, shoot their shot all on the illegal immigration. They threw all their eggs in the basket. They were trying to push hard so they could try and have, a governing majority leading into the 2030s and for the next decade. It's all about this next census that's coming up here. If the Democrats can't pull off this, strategy, I guess, lack of better terms, they're not gaining. They're not really gaining with the native-born population. That's the thing. As Alan said, after 3 generations, they become American. Also, after 3 generations, they quit voting Democrats. Statistically,
it's also ironic. When you look at the pandering to the minorities, women. If you look at you have a large percentage of the younger demographics that are trending far more misogynistic, and they have a lot of values that it's hard to divide even conservative Americans.
You have shapeshifters, man. Like what you just did, this shapeshifting.
Hold on, let's just hold on. You can go. Let's just reset the line real quick. Guys, welcome to White America. Please go ahead and open up your prolific amount of followers. Everyone loves you, including Mikhail. Go ahead and ping 50 people into this room. We don't get the opportunity to speak freely about this type of stuff anymore on Clubhouse with a significant audience. Let's get some people in here so we don't have to consistently go back to Mikhail. He has a point of view. Maybe there's some other retarded brown people who are progressives who have a similar point of view that we can listen to and get very informative information from. Open up the ping and let's do it.
I'll just say this, Mikhail, I don't, him and I butted heads before October 7th. Like, I gave my opinions about Muslims. He said, like, fuck France, it should become a caliphate, all of this stuff. I will say this. Like, as somebody who's talked to him, we have definitely different opinions, but I do think he's. I don't want to write him off as a bad person whatsoever. He has a very different belief system. I'll listen to him. He's actually somebody who's enjoyable to talk to because he's somebody who's, you can have. I feel like for the most part, like a good faith conversation with that has very different beliefs, and so. That's why he's up here. I don't think Mikhail is stupid. A lot of people consider a lot of people consider him a radical.
I appreciate the introduction, but I wanna land the plane, and thank you, by the way. I do pride myself with objectivity. I do believe that to an extent that I can look at things objectively and analyze things like math or engineering. So not that emotions won't creep in, just depends on your energy if you can be objective about it. And so far, there are people who are cracking, and doctors an example of that. But the point is the title. And the option of white race. So we're analyzing this option and we're testing its extremes. And I don't think that people who do want to champion the notion of like white race, a lot of people, maybe even here, are not really getting the bigger picture. And when we want to establish what is the ideal of the white race, we can test that by a simple proposition or a hypothetical, and we can assume another world that is acting in the same way, culture, language, and it's just 70% black, and every black guy is going around calling himself Chad and Kevin, and they behave just like whites. Now, is that a future that an actor from the white race would hold? And the point is no. And at that point, what establishes. Okay, well, you want to take back your answer, but...
no, I don't.
Yeah,
I have the same answer for 4 years.
Without interruption.
All right, let this back with your answer.
Yeah, thanks. So,
because you're kind of rambling at the beginning.
What was because I'm just... okay, well, thank you.
Let him spit it
all I'm saying, all that I perceive, what was said, is that we don't see a trajectory in where this future hypothetical can be actualized. But the problem is you're only looking at the immediate future. You're not looking long-term future. And the whole point of you complaining about, for example, birthright, is that you can see a trajectory in the future that you are assuming, and which I'm telling you that you need to question. The one who put it there in good faith. And that's the problem. I'm telling you, they didn't put it there in good faith to begin with. That, or they didn't consider the future. And at that point, I would, this is a point for being a progressive. That's the point.
Thank you.
And when you see someone like Trump is just... Yeah.
Thank you.
But the point is that white race holds the ideal of whiteness. That's the whole point. Yeah, and your only argument was that the statistics don't lead to those. But again, I'm telling you, it could be.
I'll do a review afterwards. Let's get some other people in the conversation.
It's the last point with Joe. I promise it's going to be.
Thank you for that. We want to move on to El Normo. Yeah, thank you for that. So this is, with all due respect, Mikhail, I've heard you yelling the N-word, the full N-word with the R, for hours and hours.
I got interrupted for a guy because he wants to complain about.
So you're finished.
I know. I've done it. I've done it too. What is it?
Like, who cares?
Well, I'll just finish, and if you don't care, I won't be surprised, Mikhail.
In a room that's called White America, you think this is the topic to start out with?
Mikhail, do we have to send you down, or are you going to shut the fuck up?
Just saying.
So you could go to
Thank you.
Thank you, Mikhail. So this is a white man from California pretending to a mythical identity. This is a white man from California pretending to a mythical identity in order to hijack
the struggle of American black folks.
That's right.
Somehow associating them with colonialism, of which exactly culture
What is this guy arguing against, Pepe? Like,
Okay.
we're not
Okay,
Abnormal. Doctor apparently.
Abnormal. He's never described himself as white.
No, I'm describing
No, he keeps interrupting.
He's a white man.
Okay, but Abnormal.
Just talk to me, man.
Okay, Abnormal. Here's the problem: is that I've seen pictures of him.
Yeah.
He looks like no. He looks like a Middle Eastern. No, he looks Middle Eastern.
He looks like a
Or really
white man.
He's a
No,
white
he
man.
looks like no. Shut the fuck up.
Looks like
He would be considered a very swarthy. He would be considered a very swarthy Sicilian, like Jesus Christ.
He looks like
That's the only way he could pass as a white person is a swarthy Sicilian.
He looks like Johnny Robinson.
The point is that.
He's trying to. This guy wants to complain about a conversation that happened.
The point is that he's hijacked some weird pseudo-Marxist ideology, this sort of colonialism idea. Wow.
No one's talking about
colonialism
No one's
itself. While being somebody who believes, Pepe, you want to send him down for a minute so that he has trouble controlling
Normal saying the truth.
He's got
We're not talking about it.
Yeah, that's okay. And this is a person who, just to put this in plain language, wants to conquer the world with a caliphate. He believes that your land is his. Okay? He believes that your land is occupied by the non-believers. Okay? Everybody heard it loud and clear? This is a person who wants to convert.
He's told me that at one point in different. He's told me that. Before October 7th, him and I have met.
Dude, this is completely.
He wants to either convert you or kill you.
Okay, Abnormal.
Beliefs is what this is gonna be.
Okay, Jesus Christ. I'm gonna use the mute all for the first time. No, I'm gonna use mute all. Like literally. I've talked to him. We have very differing beliefs. We understand Mikhail has very different beliefs. We don't need to.
Not everybody does.
We don't need to go through them.
Yeah, we don't need to go through it. But that's the thing.
What I'm talking about is the danger to our nation of people who want to destroy this nation. That's where this is going. And I'm talking about you, Mikhail. And I know you admit it. You don't embrace our values. You don't believe in the Constitution. You don't believe that people are equal.
Our values too.
I beg your pardon?
What I don't like
you. I did not hear
I think this is going to lead to the repetitive.
You're going to be okay. We're going to find a good guy.
I would like to hear what King Solomon is saying. I would like to hear what King Solomon is saying.
Guys, stop interrupting. One person speaks. That's it. Right now, it's normal. You have like 40 seconds.
That's more than I need. What the threat is to this thing that doesn't exist, white America, what we're really talking about is America. And anybody who embraces our values is American. And those values are mainly embodied in the Constitution and in the preservation of our culture. So when we have an invasive culture, like an invasive species, that openly says we want to destroy your culture, whether it was the fundamental principles of black.
Hello. You've reached the business line of Max Gruber with Anton Park. I'm currently unavailable to take your call. Please leave your name, number, and a brief message, and I'll return your call as soon as I can. Thank you, and have a great day.
At the tone, please record your message. When you finish recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options. To leave a callback number, press 5.
What is everyday carry?
Yo, it's John. What is this, your work cell? Call me back. Bye.
Okay, well, we see this power play where you have opportunistic leftists that want to, put in a battery in the back of a lot of non-whites and tell us how horrible we are. And we can look from like about 2012, 2013, where racism, systemic racism, white supremacy, all of this shit in the news, it just like went way, way, way up. A lot of things happened with the traditional legacy media that made us not really trust them for good reason. I wouldn't say the outcome has been better, because now you have a bunch of retards that are disseminating information online, which, it's propaganda, and I just don't think stupid people should be disseminating information, period.
How do you feel now about this, just for all of us? Like, how do you feel now about what this guy is saying, Mikhail? Do you think it's a strictly racial thing? Do you think it's a culture thing? A mix? How do you feel?
I think it's large. Well, with America, it's largely cultural. Like, despite your race, I mean, we can look at like what's happened in Europe. I mean, even with like the communism versus the people that weren't communists, how they would fight. They would fight. It was very political. It was not racial in nature whatsoever. But it was horrible, and so. You did have like the reactionary right. You can look at like Francisco Franco. We can look at even Mussolini, who was a socialist.
How's the clue?
Before he became a fascist.
He was a fascist, obviously. And then we can look at Hitler, who obviously it was a version of fascism, but. I mean, I look at fascism as like a wartime government. It's nothing that you want to see as, being the ideal for your society. But it makes sense how that happened when it happened.
Do you believe it's warranted in America based on what you feel about the other parts of whiteness, quote unquote?
I mean, that's always a question, but I mean, I do think the left... They cross boundaries far more than the right does.
Just recall, the Nazis are progressives.
Well, I do think that the Nazism,
it's progressive. It's left.
No, well, I did say that earlier. They were progressive in a way, but we're judging like a country almost a century ago.
You have to judge other countries by this value standards of America. So you have to look at it from our lens, our values, and then judge other countries by that.
I mean, to look at didn't like Franklin D. Roosevelt was it like like even closely resembled the progressives of today is fucking retarded.
Yeah, but we gotta get this definition right. So progressivism means they're progressing us away from our traditional culture, our traditions, and our constitution. So progressing us towards whatever their made conglomeration of government will be. We all allege them to be socialist communists. They're really, in my opinion, they are the fascists. Believe it or not, they work hand in hand with big government to be able to with big business to be able to keep us under control. However, in Germany, we can't frame progressives here in America as it would be progressivism in Germany or even in Nazi Germany. Now, Nazism is on the left. It's a collectivism type of idea. Ideas and ideologies on the right largely lean towards family-centric or individual-centric, and it can blend between those two.
And let's get the definition.
Come on, the piggybacking needs to stop, man.
Yeah, let's get the definition of conservative correct. It doesn't mean conserve like we're conserving energy or putting something in a jar and saving it. It means conservative as in I'm going to make a conservative estimate, or in the opposite of put a liberal coat of sunscreen on your body. It's the opposite of that. It means well measured. It means well thought out. It means rational.
Well, classically, what it means is applying old solutions to new problems. If you look at Edmund Burke, you look at the conservatives, the origin of conservative thought, they're saying, look, we have some ways of doing things that make sense, and getting these things to work is really hard, and so we should try, when we make changes to society, which we have to make them as modest as possible, and draw within the lines as far as possible.
I just want to point out
the Nazis were not
King Solomon jumping in.
The Nazis were not progressives, but they were not conservatives. Okay, I think it's fair to say the Nazis were not
They
conservatives.
hated conservatives. In fact, they despised
Yes,
them.
in fact, they despised them. Yeah, I think it's fair to say they are on the right. That they have many classic right-wing memes that they drew on, and right-wing themes. The purity of the nation and all these kinds of things are generally considered to be right-wing. But not everyone on the right is a conservative. And I think that's where we need to come back to what conservatism is about. The Nazis were not conservatives.
Yeah, price fixation is definitely not a conservative
Look at this black bastard, King Solomon. Go ahead, you black bastard.
So here's the thing. When it comes to, and this is why, respectfully, and I'll answer the question in this in what I'm saying here. This is why I think ultimately conservatism, liberal, all of that stuff fails, and we need to get back to Christ. So when it comes to that question, is your race religion or your politics? I'm realizing for myself, and I have been for a very long time, that my religion, or essentially Christ, is the most important, because what we've seen in terms of the United States, our politicians and our government, and how they've, both sides, not just liberals, but conservatives too, how they've essentially created this environment where, respectfully, folks like Mikhail and others who have diametrically opposed value systems to us, conservatives and liberals, Democrats and Republicans, have created over the last 30 to 40 years. It started with Jimmy Carter, but each of those presidents have essentially imported people who are our enemies, our sworn enemies, into this country. And I think that the core reason why there's been this confusion is because we've gotten away from what made this country what it was. I've realized myself, I'm becoming more and more, I'm going to say, a Christian nationalist or Christian national, because I think right now it's too associated with white nationalism. They're both conflated. But more and more, I'm realizing all of this political divide or political dynamics, they're all for naught if they're not spiritually grounded. They're not.
So I think you would agree that, like, the last thing you would want is, like, we can look at how horrible the Nazis were, but we can also look at Pol Pot, who killed, like, a third of his population. We can look at that. I forget how many tens of millions of people were killed in the
Jesus
Soviet
represents the
Union.
law and wisdom. You're just a moron.
Yeah, and these are not religious people.
Liberal Democrat socialists.
Same with China. It's just like, okay, I mean, at the end of the day, like, I do think that our religious foundation does. It does, and a lot of, like, white nationalists and I would talk shit to the Groypers and these quote-unquote Christian nationalist trad cats like that faggot Nick Fuentes. You know, he's just like, we're a white nation. Like, shut up, Spick. What you're describing is third world nationalism. We don't need that in the United States.
Epic King, didn't you see that Trump started this, someone help me with what it's called. It's like a faith department, like a
whole.
He put Paula White, the fucking heretic. That fucking heretic. He put her in charge of that.
He's trying to. Who he put in, I'm not, I don't know, so I'm not going to comment, good, bad. Just the fact that he had this approach to bring faith back. And I will tell you, because I've listened maybe to 4 speeches, like one-on-one speeches where I've been in the room with our Speaker of the House, with Mike Johnson, and he's very into faith and very into God, and making clear that religion and just how our founders believed in God.
Yeah.
And he pushes Mike Johnson's, and I just think the world of him. And he's very sincere about it, in a soft-spoken way. And I think we're seeing now a push to accept faith, that it's okay to have your faith, and that our country began that way. I'm not of your religion, but my religion was part also in the beginning of the founding of the nation. And that the fact that we're coming back to liking people that have faith, and that it's cool to have faith, because it was pushed away so much before. I think, and we're seeing it again, not just from Trump, but also from Congress, and it's a positive.
Well, and Abby, I appreciate you so much. I do think, though, that our politicians are the center, especially boomers, are the center of the crisis that is starting to form in this country, when Americans are looking up and realizing, 1, they don't control their environments around them. 2, the resources that their country has don't seem to be benefiting them, and seem to be benefiting every other group or interest group than them. And I would argue, Abby, the reason why that has happened over these decades is because there hasn't been a solid spiritual foundation that has guided us as a country. And now we're getting the consequences of that. And you're seeing it in the Zoomers. I think, Pepe, you were the one that pointed it out. When you look at the data with the Zoomers are starting to adopt, because of the consequences, you have these young kids starting to adopt viewpoints that would have been abhorrent 40 years ago. To even think that some of these kids are saying the things that are coming out of their mouth. The reason why we're seeing that is not only because of rebellion, which is natural. The young kids like to rebel against older folks, but it's because they don't have that optimistic future, right, that other previous generations got to live. And I feel for them, because when I see them and I see the opportunities are not there, like previous generations had, I get why they're angry. I get why they're confused, right? So my thing, Abby, to tie it back to what we were previously talking about, because you brought up faith, and obviously faith is what I think is going to ultimately save this country. There should be, and I do mean this with respect, but I have to be honest, there should be no reason why a person like Mikhail is in America. There should be no reason why a person like him calls himself an American. At all. At all. It's that simple.
So be nice.
Because I'm white. Because I'm white, you're not. That's the...
His opportunities have always been very similar.
No, you shouldn't be in this country. You know that.
To be fair, like King and
That's what this country's...
I know King, he's like a Nigerian Christian.
Yes, I'm a Protestant. Proudly.
On the end,
what was Christianity were you raised under?
As whites in this country, as someone who
just real quick. So
I didn't kick him. I just moved him down. I'll bring him back up.
You good. So Pepe, I was raised in 2 Protestant traditions. The Celestial Church of Christ, which is a Nigerian denomination, heavily focused on spiritual work, stuff like that. And then I was raised as an evangelical Protestant. So I went to a typical evangelical church. I love both of those traditions. It shaped me and my Christianity and how I look at God and how I love Christ. Those two traditions, which are both technically Protestant, is what shaped me and how I view all this.
So I'm guessing as a Catholic, we disagree on a lot.
Yes. But I will take Catholics, I will side with Christendom over our eternal enemies. I will side with
it's the same way. It's like and it's kind of something I was expressing earlier. Like, so, like, there were the Chaldeans that, and the Christian Lebanese that were in Catholic school with me. But even if I look at like the diaspora here in Scottsdale that don't the closest shopping center here to me, literally where I can walk to is all Chaldean owned. These are very nice people. I dated a couple of Chaldean women when I was younger. I'm not gonna lie, they are different for sure. But I would say that they are. They're a non-threatening group, at least in my opinion. I don't. It's like, who would I side with? Like a fellow white Bosnian or Albanian that, I don't know, of course they're not in Europe, but like a Chechen or a Dagestani. No, like these people are so much different than us. These are, in a lot of ways, I look at it, and like Mikhail, I'm not saying this, like, I'm not trying to dog on you.
I'm just waiting on an opportunity because apparently everybody is.
You guys speak uninterrupted after me. I look at Muslims as like they are a group of people you should never really allow to be more than a couple percentage of your population.
That's right.
No, I'm dead serious. And it's not because I hate them. My first best friends that I met here in Arizona when I moved here when I was 9 years old, Farhan and Sono, they were two Muslim Pakistanis whose dad was a neurosurgeon who ironically had brain cancer and died when they moved here. I don't dislike these people. My first roommate in college was a Muslim. I don't have bad experiences in my personal life with Muslims. In fact, I would say they're actually, because of how morally rigid they are, they're actually very, they're people that you can kind of count on. But if I look at the patterns, globally and how everything kind of plays out with them, I just cannot trust them. At the end of the day, why should I not trust a Middle Eastern Christian over a Middle Eastern Muslim?
Of course, you should always trust your fellow Christian if they're truly Christian. I mean, this is the person you share a spirit with and the divine spirit with, apparently. So ideologically, yes, they would have your loyalty more than someone who, for example, like Jewish, who doesn't necessarily have your interest in mind. I mean, that just goes without saying, right?
How's that go without saying, Michael?
Let me go. You guys can't be interrupting of America. And that's the difference. We're not trying to make America bad. We're only trying to make America better. I know you're.
Well, hold on. L. There is a level. Even the K word. I won't.
Yeah, don't.
I know I won't, but I would say.
I'll remind you of George Washington's letter to the Rhode Island synagogue. It's just bullshit, Mikhail. I will say something though with respect to Muslims. I do want to share this, and I would welcome anyone to go to the Museum of the History of the American Revolution, because it lays out who was here in the beginning. I was actually going to say something you might like, Mikhail, but you can be an asshole if you want. If you go to the museum, there's a section that shows what religions
and who was here in the founding. Obviously, there was a big group of Quakers and different sects of Protestants that had come over. They actually had a coin that was a Muslim coin that they found. They had Shabbat candlesticks. They had different things from the Catholic Church, like robes and such. They show all the different people that were here in the founding years of the country, and try to emphasize that there were different religions that had come here.
Yeah, but that.
Well, some of the founding fathers did say that. But some of the founding fathers did say they called them Mohammedans at the time.
Of course, like respectfully, this country was more Christian.
I know I'm
No, they were like
as much as the interlocutors here want to continue to try to make this Islam what was a Western or civilization class.
No, I don't.
Go see it for yourself, Miguel. This is it. You don't have to believe me. Go look at the music.
I'm not denying what you're saying.
But our founding fathers said they
I just really don't find it relevant.
And by the way, so is the letter that Washington
Nice trivia, but I don't find it relevant.
Okay, but our founding fathers did say that they were open to Mohammedans.
Not the point.
Look at that.
Okay.
I mean, it makes sense that you would.
Okay, they let her. Okay, but even amongst Christians. But even amongst
the values exclude you, Miguel. You're very limited. No, they don't. That is not true.
Not necessarily true.
You have a Catholic trying to tell you the history of America. What you just said is not true. The founding fathers founded this country for Christians. Period. Denomination within Christianity. That is a
this is where we disagree. No, this is where we disagree.
Presbyterians wrote extensively on the Presbyterians, the British
No, they were not Christian nationalists.
At the end of the day, it is the Christians who are going to save this country, specifically Protestants, not you niggas. So I'm not
we're talking about that. Okay, just let Jason.
This is just not informed. All right, there are many Christian countries. There were Christians in England. All right, why didn't they all become American?
What?
I mean, why did the Americans turn their own?
Jason, I want to answer your question. At the time of the
you can't. Okay.
Why did the Americans 98% of America was Protestant Christian?
Why did the Americans charge
Jason?
Oh my
gosh, this is insanity. What are you talking, Jason? Are you serious right now?
Okay.
When you look at the 13 founding colonies,
just like an investigator of a crime.
Basically, almost no Christian countries became like America. All right, until they were forced to.
It was founded on Christianity.
But Christianity is not what is important.
No, you're not making any point. 98%.
98% what's important because if
of the country was Christian.
The flip side is not.
Let me make this point.
But that's true.
The entire point of the Second Amendment was to allow for different flavors of Protestantism to flourish in this country. Jason, you have to know the history of it.
But I do know it, and that's
they were not accepting of Catholics. They were not accepting of Catholics. Like they were not. No. Hold on. They were against it. Yes. At the time, they were against religious persecution. But at the time, did they see Catholics? And you have to understand, these are largely people from the British Isles that were WASPs. They did not look at, like, for example, the Irish Catholics as being, the same as them, for lack of a better term.
They did not trust Catholics, yes, because Catholics had a political alignment with the Pope, and they did not trust Catholics.
They didn't trust the Church of England either.
They did not trust the Catholics the English also did not trust the Catholics for the same reason. Okay.
Largely because Catholics were persecuting Protestants in Europe, and then when Catholics came here, Protestants were persecuting Catholics here as well.
What do you guys call
Protestants?
Yeah, of course they are.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I don't think they're Protestants. I think they're like.
Because they real son. Look at it. Every time he gets frustrated when a laptop repairs
If
and
they
work.
are, that's fine. I mean,
You have the Quakers, the Puritans, the Congressionalists, the Presbyterians, and I forget the last one. Those were the main groups. And the Baptists. Those were the main groups.
well, the Calvinists are pieces of shit. They should never been allowed in their fucking country. But
The Methodists had some problem. Don't forget the Methodists. But Pepe, those were the groups that were trying to. No, of course, our Catholic sisters too. I get you guys are there too. But Pepe, those were the groups trying to mainly get religious freedom, right? And who were trying to make it so that they could practice their own version of Christianity without persecution.
Illinois raises a great point. The Mennonites and the Amish, like we have examples of Christians that have existed here since the founding that still live in their culture.
They really live in their culture. By the way, they make great shoofly pie if you ever go to Lancaster.
And they make great
I see Mennonites. I haven't seen them in a few
And
years.
the Amish chicken is so good.
Now,
They don't want to tear down America. Is the point. They don't want to convert us, and they don't want to convert us into a
They just want to not drive cars. They want to. There was a Mennonite community around me. I haven't seen them lately.
Do you want to know one of the reasons that Pennsylvania went red?
It says Amish.
The Amish got registered.
I want to bring in the Catholics.
Scott Kessler went and signed up, went all over Lancaster to the Mennonites and the Amish, and they got them registered to vote. They never voted before.
Yeah, you
I do want to introduce when the Catholics came in a big bunch was at the time of the Louisiana Purchase at 1803, only 15 years after the United States of America began, and it ushered in many, many Catholics from New Orleans and all along the South, French colonists. So it was
It was originally Spanish. Like so you had the Spanish in Louisiana, and they had the decree of graces, where they said any European that was of Catholic faith could immigrate there. And so, like half my family, they are Acadian, and so most of I always thought it was weird, but my grandmother was saying how her parents did not let English people in the house,
Irish
they fucking hated it.
Say that a lot, or is that just me?
Okay, it's originally a French colony. However, the Spanish won the territory and controlled it for nearly 30 years. When Napoleon comes back and takes the territory back, he then sells it to Thomas Jefferson only a year or two later to pay off debts. So it was under Spanish control. And a little tidbit is the French Quarter is actually, in New Orleans, is actually Spanish architecture. And that explains why you think there's so many Spaniards from there.
That's right. I love our history. I love Christendom history, man. I really do. Yeah, but the point is, it's Christendom history. There's all these things. I know. I couldn't pronounce it, but you could because you're more learned than me. That's why it's important. Like we had, what's his face here? He's still here, Mikhail. He's a smart guy to a point. And he's going on and on about the systematic whiteness and this and that. It's like, that is what retarded people talk about. Because they're looking for an answer to why they lose elections, why they can't seem to gather a following. That's what they're talking about. It's okay to be white. Of course it is. Of course it's okay to be white.
That's not the point. To Dr.
No.
straw man and wash down.
I'm going to straw man.
He either can't understand the sophistication of the point, or he has.
How likely is that?
I continue to point it out every time you ask.
They never will, Mikhail.
You already said that we don't see a trajectory, a future where sub-Saharan Africans become 70% of the country. So I don't see that. By that answer, you are saying that if we did see a trajectory where that did lead to 70% of America being sub-Saharan African, even if they embraced everything about being white, you would still not be okay with it.
No,
Otherwise,
no.
you would have
What I said, Mikhail, what I said was, which is the truth. No, I'm going to word it exactly the same way as I did earlier. What I said was that the statistical representation of people who would uphold that particular cultural value set doesn't play out in what we see statistically today, right? So, of course, you're talking about hold on. Of course, if you're talking about a future event, right, I can't in good faith say that, hey, everybody be fine with it. If we did have, let's say, an instance in another country where this particular racial group, ethnic group did hold those particular views and did infuse them into a different country, then it would be a different conversation. But we have to go with the info we have today. And I'm sorry, respectfully, I don't see in any world in the next 20 years people that come from Southern African descent, Sub-Saharan African descent, making any large moves in the way that they look at the world and the way that they inject themselves into culture of any country. And if you could prove that they do, that's a different story. But what I'm saying is that because they don't, and because there's no evidence of that in the past, it's very hard to get people in the future to believe that that will become true in any country in the world.
And that was your original answer.
More importantly,
that the wording you gave at the beginning of your spiel was...
No, I'm just trying to explain to you.
That's what it was. But
it's not an attempt to waffle. It's the same... Hold on. It's the same perspective I've held for 5 years.
I'm going to land it. And that would be it for me in here. But Joe brought up some statistics, and all you need to do is look at the current growth rates and assume these would be constant in the future. And that's just add 2 prompts, When would this white demographic end up losing the supermajority, which is 2050 at around the late 2040s, if current trajectories remain constant? And if they remain constant, by 2075, the white demographic will end up being a minority, actually. The Hispanics
that's not going to
take over. Let me